Welcome to CABA's webinar on tackling debt with confidence. During this session, we'll be exploring what steps you can take to tackle debt effectively and how CABA can work with you to improve your situation and minimize stress. This is an interactive webinar, so we'll have a Q&A session after the presentation. So please send in your questions using the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Click questions and then type your debt question in the box provided and then press send. We'll be answering the questions following the presentation. If you want your question to be answered privately, make a note of that when you send it to us and we'll contact you once the webinar has finished.
Hello, I'm Wendy from CABA and I'm here for a short chat about our debt support service with my colleague Paul.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul and I'm one of CABA's debt support officers.
Thanks Paul. So what does being a debt support officer for CABA actually entail?
Well, we provide debt and budgeting advice to everyone who is eligible for CABA services. So that's former and current members of the ICAEW, their immediate families and ACA students.
That sounds like a diverse group of people.
Absolutely. On a typical day, I might speak to an accountant whose small practice is struggling, a widow of a chartered accountant who is unsure how to handle the finances, and a student who is living away from home and finding it difficult to meet the high cost of rent.
That's much more varied than I thought it would be. What sorts of issues do these people typically approach you with?
Well, again, that's actually just as varied. So they may be in arrears with their mortgage, they may have fallen behind on their utility bills, they may be juggling many different credit cards, and we have even seen some who have accessed payday lending.
Even payday lending? Aren't there some who would say a chartered accountant should know better?
Unfortunately, yes. But my clients often say they feel ashamed and guilty when I first speak to them. The reality is that being a chartered accountant does not make you immune from the difficulties the economy is facing. Anyone could face redundancy or have their practice see a couple of major clients go under. Likewise, life-changing experiences such as serious illness, separation, or bereavement could happen to any one of us. My clients are usually great professionals and have worked really hard to be where they are. Being in debt is an awful experience as it is, without beating yourself up over it too.
That's a really good way to look at it. You say these people feel ashamed and guilty. Do they find it easy to approach CABA?
It's very difficult for them. I'm always keen to stress that we are not here to judge you, we're here to help you. There are also a lot of misconceptions about CABA.
That's right. Many people confuse CABA for the Institute.
Yes, Wendy. Many people do ask me if we're based in Moorgate Place or in Milton Keynes.
I can confirm we're an independent charity and we're totally separate from ICAEW and we're based out of Rugby.
Indeed, and we also don't disclose any information about the people we support with ICAEW.
So none of the information people share with us ends up at the Institute?
That's correct. Everything is strictly confidential and neither the ICAEW nor your employer will know that you've contacted us, much less what you've said to us.
Good. I hope we've been able to reassure some of our listeners today. So Paul, say someone approaches you for help with debt. What does the debt advice process actually entail?
Well, when a client calls us for debt support, they're assigned a debt support officer, which could be myself or a colleague of mine, and we'll be the main point of contact for as long as needed. So this could be weeks or even up to months. The first thing we try to do is to work out whether you might be able to access more income. So you may have an entitlement to benefits which you did not realise. In Parliament last year, it was revealed that £13 billion of benefits go unclaimed, and so we can carry out a benefits check for you. We also look as to whether your expenditure can be reduced, so simple steps such as looking at switching energy tariff to a cheaper one are also explored.
Wow, I'm sure there are a lot of steps before people can take to improve their financial situation that they might not think of. What do you advise in relation to the debt itself?
We are able to discuss various solutions and the pros and cons of them with you. So many people automatically feel they have to become bankrupt, when really there may be several other options that might be more appropriate. But if bankruptcy is the best for you, we can talk you through how it works and clear up many common misconceptions.
Isn't it true that bankruptcy can impact on your ICAEW membership, Paul?
Yes, that is true, and so it isn't right for everyone. There are other insolvency issues that also may have an impact upon your membership, but at CABA we can explain what any possible implication might be, as well as when you do and don't have to report to the Institute. We can usually, although not always, suggest informal solutions which mean you don't have to give up your membership.
What sort of form might those solutions take?
Usually an informal arrangement with your creditors. Most people are surprised to hear that we do this, but we are able to negotiate with creditors, so banks, utility companies and so on your behalf, as we know it can be intimidating for a lot of people.
One person you helped with this was a chartered accountant who we're going to call Simon. This is not his real name, of course.
That's right.
For those of you who don't know, there's a great section on the CABA website called Real Stories, where people CABA have helped have kindly agreed to share their stories in case it helps others. One of them is Simon, who you help, Paul, and we'll include a link to this family's story on this page. So tell us about Simon.
Well, Simon is a self-employed chartered accountant who has his own practice, and he and his wife adopted 2 toddlers, which was an expensive undertaking, but one that they had sensibly planned for. Unfortunately, what he couldn't have planned for was the recession. Several clients began to pay late, and then a big client went under, owing him a lot of money. I'm sure that this is a story that many accountants in practice are familiar with.
That does sound difficult. And what did Simon do?
Well, he tried to move money about using one card to pay the other. Things were just getting worse and worse, and the stress was putting a real strain on him and his family.
I've read the story on the site, and Simon says he wishes he'd called CABA sooner. He said he was reluctant to call, as he's always worked hard and wasn't living an extravagant lifestyle. He kept going and hoped things would turn around.
Yes, as we said earlier, many people are reluctant to give us a call. I know how difficult it is for you to pick up the phone that first time, and I know you'd really rather not be speaking to me. Just like with Simon though, I'm happy to just listen to you and your story, and then together we can work out the best way forward.
And what did you do to help Simon?
Well, Simon, his wife and I all worked out the best plan to manage and reduce the debts. I contacted their creditors on their behalf and negotiated a reduced payment arrangement.
That's fantastic. How is he doing now?
He's still sticking to the plan, and he's been able to reduce his debt significantly. There are no quick solutions, and sometimes hard work and difficult choices are needed, but I'm sure Simon would say that he's a lot less stressed now that the letters and phone calls have stopped and he can see the balances decreasing rather than increasing.
That's really great to hear. I'm glad we were able to help him. And as a reminder, if you want to know more about Simon or any of the other people we've helped, you can read about them on the Real Stories section of our website. So Paul, do you have any top tips for anyone who might be in debt and listening to this?
Absolutely. So top tip number 1 is to keep a budget and stick to it. It's impossible to get to grips with financial problems if you're not sure what is coming in and what is going out, and you'll find yourself living from payslip to payslip without it. It's also important to acknowledge that there'll be months where you do go off budget, so say if the car needs repairs or you might have a friend's wedding coming up. But like with any new habit, it's vital not to undo all the hard work you've done. So say with a new exercise routine, don't let it slip just because you miss a day. Do your best to get back on track. So top tip number 2 is to find out what you owe. It can be daunting to think about, but it's crucial to get exact figures. It's a good idea to check your credit file, and there are some free services out there for you to do this, such as nodl.co.uk. Debts can also be passed around between different creditors and collection agencies, and it's easy to get lost with which one is contacting you about which. If you are ever unsure, you can always ask them directly, which brings us quite nicely on to top tip number 3, engage with your creditors. Many people put this off as they are too embarrassed to admit that they have problems, but creditors will treat you more sympathetically if you explain the difficulties you are having rather than if you stop payments without any warning. Just keep calm, explain that you are addressing the problem, and don't agree to any payments that you can't afford. I'd also like to finish this by saying please do contact us and let's have a chat. I promise you that although it sometimes may feel like it, you're not the only person going through this situation, and we're here to help you. So if you're having sleepless nights or trouble concentrating at work, or you find that you're having arguments with your partner or family, please just get in touch. One person I spoke to just last week said that it felt like a weight had been lifted just by talking to someone about it. And I'd love to be able to help you in the same way.
Thanks, Paul. If you'd like to contact us about help with debt, you can call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you feel more comfortable sending an email, you can reach us at the email on the screen, and we also have a 24-hour live chat available through our website. And now it's time for our Q&A session. We've received some questions during the webinar, so let us answer them now. And in the meantime, please send in more questions if you have them using the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Click Questions and then type your debt question in the box provided and then press Send. And don't forget to let us know if you want your question to be answered privately after the webinar.
Excellent. Well, we'll just move on to our first question that we've received. And so the question is, I recently received a call from a company which told me they could help with my debts. They said there was new government legislation which could write off 70% of my debt. Can they help me, and how do they get their details? Well, I do get this one a lot. So firstly, just to reassure you, these companies usually cold call people at random and won't actually be aware of your debt situation. I've received several calls like this myself, so they are just chancing their arm. There are companies like this that provide debt advice for a fee. We always advise people to be very careful with these companies, as many of the services they offer can be provided by us at CABA or other organisations for free. Because there is money involved, these companies are not always guaranteed to offer the most impartial advice, as they can charge you more money for formal debt solutions, even if they might not be appropriate for you. So when these companies talk to you about debts being written off, they're actually usually talking about either an IVA or debts being statute barred. So the new legislation they're referring to is actually well over 30 years old, if you can believe that. So an IVA, that's a form of insolvency, which, if you qualify for, is a legally binding agreement with your creditors where you agree to pay them over a fixed period, usually 5 years or so. Creditors will usually agree to write off a percentage of your debt as part of it. However, IVAs are not easy, they're not suitable for everyone, and they can impact on your ICAW membership. So if you are thinking about one, CABA can provide free and impartial advice on whether it's the right thing for you. The other option that was talked about, statute barred, a debt can become unenforceable under specific circumstances. So this is called statute barred, and it applies after 6 years if the creditor has not already obtained a county court judgment, you or anyone else owing the money have not made a payment, or you have not written to the creditor admitting that you owe the debt. So I definitely would not advise trying to ignore all of your creditors for 6 years, as they are obviously well aware of this legislation themselves, and they will take court action. However, if there is a creditor you have not heard from in some time and are wondering if this debt is statute barred, please do consider getting in touch with us for some free advice. Okay, so that's the end of that question. The second question that we've received, it says, excuse me, it says, I've been receiving a lot of calls from one of my creditors. They call me on my mobile non-stop and often do it while I'm at work. The calls are often badgering me to pay more money. Is there anything I can do to stop this? Well, firstly, I'm really sorry to hear that you've been experiencing that. Creditors are not allowed under the Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading regulations to aggressively pursue debtors. So they are within their rights to contact you both by phone and in writing, but only on a reasonable number of occasions and at reasonable times. So they can't phone you too frequently or late at night. They're also not allowed to contact you on social networking sites, so Facebook, LinkedIn and so on. They can't do anything to deliberately cause you distress or embarrassment. So for example, they can't contact a neighbour to have them pass on a message. They can't pressure you into selling property or taking out more credit to pay off the debt. And they can't pressure you to pay in full or in large installments if you are unable to afford it. So what you might want to do is to write to the creditor and ask them to remove your number from their records and advise them that they should only contact you in writing. So you should send this via recorded delivery. And they usually will comply with this, but you should always open and read every letter you receive, of course. Now, if this does continue, you can make a complaint. You will need to gather as much evidence as you can. So make a log and record who called, when, who you spoke to, the content of the calls, so on and so on. You then could make a complaint to the creditor directly, or alternatively to any sort of trade association of which they're a member. You could also make a complaint to the Financial Ombudsman Service. So again, this is the sort of thing we'd be more than willing to help you with, so if you would like further assistance, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We do hope that you found this webinar useful, and please don't hesitate to contact us if there are any queries that you have, or if this webinar has raised any issues you'd like to discuss. So thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to wish you goodbye.